We don't. They don't have to be directly.
Okay. Let's call a regular board meeting together. The April 10th. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We could have a roll call and see if anybody escaped.
David Darkstresser.
Here.
Michael Astafan.
Excused.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
Thomas Stover.
Here.
Mark Finkel.
Here.
Michael Clark.
Here.
Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Colton.
Here.
John Hudson.
Here.
Carol Wright.
Here.
Richard Farrar. Here. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any revisions to the meeting agenda? Need a motion to adopt the present agenda?
I make that motion.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. I didn't see any guests. So, and public comment. Is this,
We'll do that. Do this.
okay, do it later.
Unless there's.
All right. Any changes or questions?
Are there any people who want to make?
I didn't have anything signed. I didn't have anybody signed up. I'm sorry. Is there anybody in the audience would like to speak? Public comment?
We're going to do that next. We'll
Yeah,
start that.
That's why I was asking. Oh no,
No, we won't.
We're going to take care of it. Okay. All right. So we've gotten through that. Any questions or changes to the regular board minutes from last meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make that.
Have a motion? A second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right. Now the report of the executive director. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is on page 82. Again, as in past months, a great deal of my time has involved dealing with the district's ongoing financial situation and budget development, and working closely with the chief financial officer, and of course many also continued discussions of litigation matters. One additional matter that an item that has taken up occupied a piece of my time over the past month is an appeal, and we have the folks, the permit holders that are appealing a decision of relating to a Great Sacandaga Lake access permit issue. They're here now, and and they want to appeal to the board a decision of the executive director. They've formally appealed the decision of the chief engineer in an appeal of as part of their due process, initially the Hudson River Area Administrator. If you folks don't mind, I'll show them on the maps, and then you can speak, unless you want to go first. Let me do that. No, let me do it now. I also want to note, and I did not include it in my report, but as we had discussed last month, we were dealing with the draft Headwater Benefit Study, and we had a response to that draft. That has been submitted, and we await the final outcome of that.
Right. Both Albany Engineering and Borlex also submitted comments.
So, yes.
Would it pay for me to hand out that little summary that I had while you're speaking about that kind of explains that map?
If you'd like to, that's I don't mind at all.
Nope.
Maybe it wouldn't hurt for them to have that information.
Mr. Lowenstein, I don't think it needs to be that regimented.
Not at all.
I had pointed out to you just a few minutes ago that we've got that in discussion of the front lot issue and how you define a front lot. That I was pointing out some
Thank you.
on the map that you folks have in front of you. I was pointing out the private property. In particular, we've got the private property of Mr. and Mrs. Laubenstein, which is, if you don't want to slide this back, Mark. We've got Mr. and Mrs. Laubenstein here. And next to them, we have Mr. and Mrs. Santucci that own this private lot here. Both of these people are eligible for front lot access permits. What you're looking at on this map is one of those crowberries that I referred to. This line here that you're following around, this is the shoreline at mean high water. That's 771. Now, granted, right now, with the reservoir at roughly 760 or a little bit under, that shoreline's out further. A portion of this is dry. It won't be all year, and it won't be for much longer. Because of this cove, and because of the fact that the neighbor here, Mr. and Mrs. Mikulik, do have a front lot access permit, and given its alignment, as you can see, it occupies this entire cove and a piece of this point. The Santucci's came along afterwards. I believe they built their home after the folks next to them, the Mikuliks, built a home. Certainly are front lot eligible. They have roughly along the state property line 200 feet in terms of the width along the property line. Right. Well, right here. And yet, given the alignment of that cove and the way the state land lies in front of them, and the fact that there's a pre-existing access permit to the south of them, they're effectively boxed in a corner. They do have a backlot access permit. It's down the road. It's not in front of their. It's not in front of their private property, and it's only 10 feet wide.
Oh, okay.
So they are backlot permit holders. While in reality they are certainly front lot eligible.
Okay.
This issue was brought to the board, and also we have the Laubensteins, who also are situated on the point. They currently hold a backlot access permit that meanders down through this, what's effectively a lowland alder swamp, to get out to this desirable point area. But the irony of having an access permit on a point like this is on the opposite side of the road. There is another piece of private property, given just again the lay of the land, with a nice home that sits here, and the Laubensteins have a picnic table that's somewhere out in here, essentially, directly in front of out in front of the picture window, more or less, of their neighbors across the road.
Is that where their house is?
That's where their house is, right there.
It's one of the ironies that dealing with this type of topography. The Laubensteins are also front lot eligible permit holders. They've got New York State property on two sides of their, not just one side, but two sides of their private property.
790 feet to be exact.
We see that
Around
on
the
the sheet.
perimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that little paper I gave you.
This is that's the situation. Given the fact that staff, in staff's opinion, we're not able to, without a modification of a resolution, adjust the alignment of the permit boundaries here slightly to grant the Santucci's and the Laubensteins some type of reasonable and usable front lot access permit. As the executive director, when the appeal came to me, I felt the obligation to deny that and present this to the board for your consideration. And of course, also in a separate matter, we're discussing a resolution in committee that relates to this situation. I will say that this is not the only situation like this that exists out there. you do wind up with converging permit lines when you get into these cove areas many times. It's one of the most difficult areas for the administrator to deal with the access permits is in these back bays and the points where there's just no easy way to do it. And you have various generations of houses and developments, and one came before the other, that pretty much dictates the alignment from the time that the initial access permit was granted. And without the ability to adjust that, it brings us to where we are now with effectively 2 front lot eligible permit holders being cut out of any usable front lot access permit, any usable, reasonable access permit. And I can answer any questions, however the board would like to do it. You know, these folks certainly have the right to give you their position on it also. And I think I've probably said enough at this point, unless you have more questions about the specifics. But I would suggest that Mr. Santucci and Mr. Laubenstein, and Mrs. Laubenstein, of course, present, you know, give you their thoughts on this and their actual request.
Yeah, can I just explain how it?
Go right ahead if you want.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm Ray Lobenstein, my wife Joan, and Walter Santucci. Antoinette was not able to be here because of a business commitment. I mean, this goes, I mean, we've been dealing for this since we bought the property back in 1980. And back then, unfortunately, and I think this is how it all came about, there was a gentleman, and I don't know if he was director back then or administrator or whatever, Mr. Gifford, and he insisted that we were backlot people, okay? And that's how we ended up with only a 10-foot. And I think when the Robinsons subdivided their property in '79, you know, we were kind of left out of the loop. In fact, I own the property that the Santucci's have now. I sold that to them in 2006. So we were essentially left out of the loop and given backlot access 10-foot permits. So even though our deeds and our title search show that we're front lot people, so I don't know. He was a difficult guy to deal with, and unfortunately that's gone by and we're dealing with it today. So that's kind of where it came about, and it is certainly clear that we are front lot people, and I think we are entitled to, the Santucci's and us are entitled to a portion of that property that runs down. Unfortunately, and as Michael showed you on the map there, the Mikulic's property, the way it parallels along the shore, so in reality, they only have like, what they have down, 225 feet of frontage, but they end up with a total of 705 feet of permit area because of the way it is. So that portion of that extra 480 feet actually should, in my opinion, should be divided between some way between the Santucci's and us. And that's where we're coming from here, all right? And of course, I really didn't pursue it much further because back in 1980 when I bought my property, and this Gifford was kind of a hardhead, I wanted to get a permit, so I kind of let it go, and it's okay, whatever. And then when the Santucci's bought my property, then we started to pursue it a little further. And I got to say one thing. I got to really thank Michael and John. I mean, it's been a pleasure dealing with you people. My past experience hasn't been very pleasurable with the River Authority, but it's been a pleasure with you people, and I thank the board for letting us present this today. So, I don't know, I just hopefully it comes out in our favor, and I don't know if I have anything more to mention. I have that little summary there that kind of spells it out. Didn't you have some handouts, Walter, that you wanted to give? Walter and Antoinette have done a lot of research back just trying to prove that you know, we are front lot people, and I think can I just give me those and I'll hand them to everyone. Thank you. And I think you did you see did you show them the map that you had realigned for us back in 2008?
Well, we're going to get to that, I think.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Those, just their research on their part.
Could we get one for the board secretary?
Certainly
Yeah.
can.
Great.
You need one?
I'll read this.
Michael?
I've already seen it, right? Look on here.
All right, anybody have any questions? I guess that's the next step.
No, I don't have any at the moment. It's been a lot to digest.
Pardon me?
It's been a lot to digest.
Oh, it is, yeah. But again, I don't think anybody can deny the fact that we are pro people.
Not at all.
I thank you.
This unallocated,
It's,
that would go to
it's just,
Lobenstein or Santucci?
no, that's
They
state.
split it up between the two.
Split up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Okay.
If I could put this in front of the board, I don't know, we've only got one copy of this. Here's a proposed solution. A proposed solution, there are, of course, more.
Here's
Do you
Lobenstein.
mind if I stand up here?
No, come on up.
Then Mr. Lobenstein would come down here, and how far that way?
To here, right?
Right to there.
To there, okay.
So
So
you-
you'd get that little point there.
Mhm.
And then Mr. Santucci would get this portion.
From here to here.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Well,
Or
this
to
is-
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're go-
Start, the starting line here.
possibly,
The current
How you
thinking
gonna
is,
line that up?
the actual thinking is to
Yeah, I assume you were drawing this line to keep the shoreline here.
yeah.
do, and then what, like this, right?
Okay, and then,
Which does not affect
Doesn't
this
affect
gentleman's
No.
width at all, and it just clips off this point, which then in turn frees up the space to issue an access permit to Santucci and Lobenstein.
Yeah.
okay.
This was your proposal back in 2008,
Almost, yeah,
Similar, yeah.
almost.
until somebody came into your office and started screaming at you, right? I mean, isn't that what happened? I mean, all of a
There
sudden
was,
we terminated that?
there
I
was,
don't know what
there was a
happened.
disagreement.
There had to,
Disagreement,
there had to
okay.
be,
We'll call it
all
that.
three parties had to agree on the change according to the resolution.
Oh, I see.
But they
Oh, on
didn't
the-
all agree, so
on the
that
resolution.
dismissed it.
Is that why the reasonable was added to the resolution?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
The,
Yeah, I wasn't clear on that.
well, let's say that we approve of this realignment. Are we opening ourselves up to lawsuits or something? I mean,
Well, the
Well-
board has the authority to deviate from its own resolution.
Okay,
And it can do so either globally, as the governance committee is now considering to do with the proposed revision to resolution
100301.
100301.
301, right?
or
Or,
the board can act on a more limited basis to right the wrong that is before it directly.
okay.
Now, any decision of the board is a final decision of the agency and can be challenged in
right.
an Article 78 proceeding before the Supreme Court, either in the venue of the plaintiff or in the venue of the defendant. In our case, we're both venued in Fulton County and in Albany County, so either of those places. So that ultimately the courts would decide whether your decision is arbitrary and capricious or whether it has a rational basis.
Right.
So if you can articulate a rational basis for going forward with this solution, although you may be sued, you would win the suit. Obviously, we'd
we're
have to
not
take on the expense of defending the litigation.
We're not afraid of being sued.
Right. We're not afraid of being sued.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
But to answer your question,
We'll
yeah,
go
we
to
can
it.
be sued. But
Well, I mean, on the face of it, it looks like a reasonable solution
Yes, it does.
to the problem, but I would like to study this material that we just got today. So, could we have a chance, and we have 2 more board members, don't we, that aren't here? Just one? We're down to 5 already?
Yes, we are.
Oh, well, we have one more board member
So we
that I
take
think
roll.
ought to be given the chance to look at this, and maybe table it till next month.
Okay.
Would that make sense?
Probably the best thing, Tom, would be to go right there and check it out.
Yeah.
I know right.
It looks very reasonable to me.
Well, since our next meeting is in town of Johnstown
Okay.
Town Hall,
Oh, 6, so that,
I can, between myself and the administrator, we can take whatever board members would like to, certainly you 2 gentlemen from out of town, I can take Mr. Finkel and Hayes there at any point over the next month. And you can actually see what that map's trying to indicate. And once you see it, I think you,
I can see
And I
it
think
now.
it would help the arbitrary and capricious nature of it too.
to view it.
If we actually see it, consider it.
So you're proposing bringing this line down to the point where it intersects the shoreline and then bring it this
Right
way.
now, this fellow's line goes right straight out.
Right.
It clips off a piece of this point.
And then you'll just propose a
Proposal is
different.
come to here, and we'll put a pin or a stake over there, and then break it and turn it like this, so that these folks, this area is unallocated now. However, it's never been issued because it's cut off by the alignment of this. It winds up being
So now it'll become allocated.
it winds up being a triangle of, the current terminology is wetland.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, this realignment makes sense to me. But,
I can honestly say we have property on the cove up in the Fulton chain, and this is how we align them up there. It's all pie shaped. It's been equitable that way.
okay.
So, yeah, that's fine.
We will modify that proposed map and distribute it to the board
Okay.
well in advance of next meeting.
Sure.
And given the size of it, I think this time we'll issue you large format maps so that they're easier to deal with.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Sure thing.
I had a little trouble.
Because on this
Scanning
page
around.
here, it's tough to figure all this out.
It is.
But this makes it a lot
This is
clearer.
nice.
So essentially, the board is tabling the appeal until next
Meeting, so we can
To bring
realign, so we can see the realignment here on the map,
to bring it back up.
and to bring it back up, and we'll probably.
Are the Santucci's and Lobenstein's appearance at the next meeting necessary or voluntary on their part?
Be voluntary on
See
your
about
part.
it.
And would you entertain anybody else who elected to speak on the matter?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is that,
I mean, we're taking quite a bit of waterfront from Mr. Mikulik. I guess he doesn't use it very much or at all, but he certainly has a
okay.
chance, he or his family or whoever has a chance to comment on it.
Reasonable comments will be entertained.
Yep. Okay.
Certainly. I don't see any problem with it.
Me neither.
Does the board want staff to put the Mikuliks on notice, or
What would your recommendation be? I would.
I would say that the appeal process typically does not require, unless Rob, who's more familiar, has a whole lot more history with the appeal process than I. The appeal process typically does not require an access permit holder who's appealing a determination of the board or appealing a determination to the board, to put every possible person on notice as to
Not even neighboring properties?
the existence of the appeal.
I don't like to blindside them.
In my, if I could jump in,
Yep.
in my opinion, this action or proposed action before the board is analogous to a zoning variance. If you want to, it's not one-to-one, but it's kind of like that. And in that process, you would notify anybody else that might be affected. I mean, there they go within a radius.
Right.
And you notify everyone, but
Well, he's definitely affected.
we should, I think it's fair that Mr. Micklef be notified of the proposed change before him. And I will say, although he was, those permit holders were not in favor of it in the past, what's being proposed currently has a slightly different alignment to it than what they had seen in the past.
How much?
I think it's reasonable.
Define slightly.
Yeah.
So,
What does slightly mean? I mean,
well, essentially, this red line, if you follow this out, was what the original proposal was.
Okay.
Now, currently, they have this alignment that goes out this way. We're gonna use a
okay.
combination of the two, go to here and then bend it so that this whole access area is still there. It clips off at this point and would grant that access to the Santucci's and the Lobensteins.
And it doesn't change their description at all.
Now,
okay.
everything.
What was their objection the first time?
That point is theirs. It's you have to. It's a matter of perception around
Okay.
the lake, or for that matter, any lake, and the perception is they're looking out at something that would no longer be theirs, even though it's New York State land. I don't know if I explained that as well as I could, but that's there becomes a sense of ownership of the state land, and people begin to visualize it as their own. The real purpose of an access permit is, just as its name implies, that it grant people access over state land from the property line to the water's edge. To that end, this modification certainly does that for the neighbors here would have theirs slightly modified, and an access pathway, it still lands right smack in the middle of it. However, I would not be surprised if they would at the very least have questions of the board.
Right. That's fine. I assume that existing beach access, whatever pathway, belongs to the. Is it Mikulic's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was put in by them.
Correct.
Okay. So their only access was right to that one section of beach they're using anyway, that we're marking for
is
them.
that public or is that their private beach access?
They put that in across their access permit in years past.
That's a private.
But
Private.
For their private use.
Okay. Well, that's what
On
they're
state
using.
land.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Permitted use.
Correct.
Okay. Yes. With permission. Got it. Any other questions? You guys are probably more familiar with this than I am.
I know right where it is.
Okay. Yeah, I had to not only decipher the map, but understand the permit system at the
Well, we
same
can
time.
certainly take Mr. Finkel there anytime in the next month if he's not familiar with the area. And
Just over.
the three board members that are from way out of town, from this area, before the next meeting, I would suggest that anybody that can at least take a 15-minute ride out there with.
I can understand it from the map here.
Yeah.
Now, the original map I got on a computer or online was a little tough to decipher.
It's a lot.
It
clearer.
needs to be larger.
Yeah, this is nice.
So.
And Mr. Mikulic should be allowed to.
Should be notified.
Okay. We will do that, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. All right. Anything else? Mike? Anything else?
No, that's the regulating district's position on that.
Okay.
From the staff.
All right. Anything else with your report?
No, sir, unless anyone has questions for me.
No. However, at this time, I'm gonna.
Oh, sure.
We've already mentioned the Albany Engineering or Albany Energy
Engineering.
Engineering. Is it engineering or energy?
Engineering.
Thank you. So I'd call for an executive session right now. I'm in executive session to talk about litigation and personnel, to get that over with. And I'd like to include financial officer, senior staff, the entire senior staff. I want to thank the Loppensteins and Mr. Santucci, and we'll handle it in a month. This will give us a chance. We have one board member missing. No, I appreciate it. I can see what your case was. Yeah. Sorry it took this long.
That's all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to hold it right
Mr.
here.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
you're
Yeah, we're going to hold it right here. Thanks.